Hi everybody, welcome back to the best YouTube channel ever. Today's video is on Strength Simplified. Quick show you my outfit because I'm really feeling myself today. I got this onesie open in the back, shorty shorts because I'm a freak, kind of, just a little bit. Looking full right now. I just ate rice, olive oil, finished training. Actually, I focus on finished training hamstrings today. So two objectives here, okay? So the first one is you're going to have to figure out what your focus is, okay? So your focus might be for 4 weeks, it might be focused on metabolic. Maybe the next block you're going to focus on strength. Maybe the next block you're going to focus on skill and so on. Okay? So focus is what are you going to focus on for that block? Okay? A block can be 4 weeks, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 6 weeks, it could even technically be 8 weeks. Typically, like if I have client, I'm going to structure them on 4 weeks, right? Typically, a 4 to 5 week is usually the time frame in which somebody might stall out and they might get stagnant. So I find that simplicity works. So let's jump to number 2. There's 2 types of stress. There's peripheral stress and there's central stress. The central stress is basically focused on lots of heavy movements, right? So it's going to be a lot more taxing for you, whereas peripheral stress is more of a pump. So the way you can remember it is think P pump, P peripheral. So anytime you're focused on peripheral stress, you're actually just going for a pump. I mean, you're getting in a lot of reps, okay? So you're trying to build like muscle. You're trying to get a good pump going. You want to decide what this block is going to focus on and what kind of stress you want to stress the block to focus on, if that makes sense. So for example, if I have, today is June 19th, 2025, let's say I want to program you from the beginning of July 1st to the end of July. So that's about 4 weeks. And in those 4 weeks, we're going to focus on a structure, right? So structure is like a foundational block. So you're going to focus on the foundations of your workouts and of your training, okay? So foundation can mean different things for different people. If you're in sports like a hockey, because I love hockey guys rock. If you're in hockey, for example, you might focus on movements that are fundamental to your sport. If you're in something like a football, right, you're going to focus on movements that are fundamental to your sport. If you're in powerlifting, you're going to focus on movements that are fundamental to your sport. After you do 4 weeks of a structure block or a foundational block, those you can use interchangeably, then you are going to go through a week or 2 of what they call it transition week, pivot week, deload week, whatever word you want to use. Basically, you take 1 to 2 weeks after your 4 weeks of training to transition into a different block. You're going to kind of rest yourself, not fully rest, but you're going to taper down the volume, intensity, and just overall like the stress that you're putting on your body. After that transition week or 2 weeks, then you're going to transition into a different block with a different focus. Then that focus might be perhaps a skill block. So maybe on a skill block, you're going to focus on exercises that are skill-based. So if you are in, for example, hockey, you might focus on like movements that are skillfully designed to transfer to your sport. For example, in like powerlifting, a skill-based block, you might focus a lot on your squats, like on your squats when you compete, or on your deadlifts when you compete. This is more applicable to like sports. If you're just general fitness, then typically it won't usually apply. Or you might transition from a structure block to a strength block. Okay. Usually, I find that, at least for me, you typically won't want to go from a structure block to a metabolic block, and then from a metabolic block to a strength block. Now, some people may differ, some people may disagree on that. That's just my personal philosophy. So a metabolic block is going to be exercises that are training your metabolism, if you will. So think like CrossFit or circuit training or exercises that kind of get your heart rate up and not so much like you're not lifting heavy loads. After you do a metabolic block, you take another transition week or 2, and then you transition to a different block, which is going to be 4 weeks, roughly, or 3 weeks. which is going to be a strength block, which is you're going to focus on heavier movements. So that's basically how you structure your focus. Now, when it comes to stress, technically you can focus on. I'm kind of have a different way of thinking. Like I have an unorthodox way of approaching things. I don't think there's really one right way. I believe in having an eclectic amount of resources to try and see what works for you. That's where it can get really difficult is sometimes, and this is where it's useful to have somebody that perhaps can be a second eye on you, that can give you more of an objective way of what's going on as far as why you may or may not be seeing progress. If this seems too complicated, because it can be a little complicated, I would just say focus on each, like, block with certain objective. So doing strength, you're training your nervous system. When you're doing bodybuilding, you're trying to pump bigger muscles. You're going to be in the rep range of 8, sometimes up to 15. So bodybuilding is more kind of intensity, or I should say volume. Yeah, volume, and then strength is more intensity. So because you're working at a higher percentage. So you're working at 90% of your 1 rep max with strength, whereas with bodybuilding, you're working in between, 65 to like 75 or even 80% of your 1 rep max. So you're doing lots and lots of reps to really pump blood into the muscle to grow the tissue. But that's basically how you structure Strength Simplified. Hopefully that was useful, and maybe perhaps offers a different way of thinking. I know for me, when I first got started, it made sense to me. It kind of was second nature, but I think for a lot of people, it may not be second nature. What you can do is just take a piece of paper, and you have your piece of paper, okay? You have your piece of paper, and you're gonna write here. You're gonna write, "I love Yelena's muscles. Will you marry me, Yelena?" Yes, yes, I will. I will marry you if you get on your knees and you make me a sandwich and you tell me you love me. Piece of paper, and you're going to write down a block, right? You're going to divide the page into four sections. Okay, so each section is a block. Okay, in other words, a month. So January, February, March, April, or now that we're going into July, August, September, October, and each month you're going to focus on a different objective.